that one glorious word represents more than just the geography between the Sabine and the Rio Grande. It represents a unique idea and way of life. A life of rugged individualism, proud self-reliance, gritty toughness, and fierce independence. That is what made Texas, and that is what will save her again. Howdy, folks. Sam Houston here. I want to thank you for tuning into the Feed Bandit podcast. Feed Bandit is the Texas first outdoors brand built by rabid Texans, for rabid Texans, and all those who aim to be one someday. We unapologetically promote the ideals that shape our Texas pride and Texas first patriotism through our love of hunting, the outdoors, and the gear and apparel we create. Texas, above all else, preserve the tradition, protect the legacy. Check us out at feedbandit.com. And to repeat that great rallying cry from a former colleague of mine, liberty or death. Now, enough of my talking. Here are a couple of bandits that love Texas as much as I do. Enjoy.
Howdy, friend. Welcome back to the Feed Bandit podcast. Jimmy back with you. And on this one, we're going to continue our series on Whitetail Strategies. And we're going to be talking about backyard bucks. So let's dive into it. We're actually on chapter 15 on the book called Whitetail Strategies, subtitled A No-Nonsense Approach to Successful Deer Hunting. So we're getting a lot of tips and tricks from old Peter Fiducia, the author of this book. It's been pretty interesting. You got some things that I'm going to try out this coming deer season. And believe it or not, when this is released, we're into bow season down here in Texas. So I'm sure other places, some of you guys listening, you've probably been out and sat in your blind or in your stand already. That's pretty cool. So I hope someone's gotten some success so far. But in the meantime, let's get into this chapter, backyard bucks. At this point, I haven't talked much about recommending that you should get off the beaten trail or chase bucks into a remote backcountry. The reason is twofold. One, I try to relate my strategies and advice to practical hunting techniques in the average hunter, especially since the vast majority of you either can't find the time to hunt in remote back areas or don't have these areas where you hunt. Two, hunting in remote areas isn't all that necessary to score on big bucks. I'm witness to the fact that a lot of big trophy bucks, some large enough to make the Boone and Crockett record books, are killed within sight of suburbia, somewhere in America, each year. Even in states like Montana, Maine, and Missouri, big whitetail bucks have learned to live, eat, and mate within a stone's throw of civilization. No matter where you live, you have backyard bucks close by. And I have to say, I'm lucky enough to live in an area here in Comal County where the whitetail deer are quite plentiful. And, all I gotta do is go on a walk around the neighborhood and, scare up some whitetails here and there. Walk my dog Biscuit in the mornings, and we often see a lot of whitetails. And in some of the trails around here, you see a lot of deer, and even in town in New Braunfels. I mean, if you haven't been down here, there's a ton of deer in town. Now, of course, they're townies, right? They're kind of they look like runt deer, all of them. But I mean, it's still cool to have them walking around and such. Bagging a big trophy buck is naturally every deer hunter's dream. I've listened to and read about many theories on what it takes to kill big bucks. It's been said in order to bag big trophy-racked bucks, a hunter must hunt in the most inaccessible and remote areas he can find if he wants any chance at all at shooting a trophy. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. While a lot can be said for hunting trophy bucks in the backcountry, it doesn't mean it's the only way you can score on a record book buck. Tongue twister. During the 32 years I've hunted whitetails, as of the time of writing this book, I've taken some very large racked bucks, some with scores in the 150s, all within 25 to 150 yards of civilization, real civilization, houses, highways, and even airports, areas most hunters would naturally avoid. Most hunters feel these areas do not provide the opportunity to take a good buck, never mind a trophy-class animal. On several occasions over the years, I've taken some of my better bucks just outside of village limits. Remember, if you want to take bucks, especially big racked bucks, learn to be flexible and innovative with your deer hunting tactics. In the Northeast and states like New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania, and Connecticut, big racked bucks have learned to adjust their way of life in order to avoid hunting pressure. They have learned to become cottontail rabbits and survive by leaving their usual lairs within their range. Hunting pressure increases. Consequently, some older and wiser bucks have learned to inhabit populated areas that lack hunting pressure during the hunting season. These bucks use backlawns, yards, and shopping mall properties when excess hunting pressure demands it. In these avoided areas, danger from hunting pressure for the wily trophy buck is non-existent. Years ago, I became wise to a buck that bedded down in heavy briars about 60 to 75 yards from a non-hunting friend's house. Each morning, the buck left an apple orchard across the street from my friend's place and bedded down behind his deck. From my tree stand in the apple orchard, about 100 yards from his house, I could hear his dog barking excitedly each morning around 7:45 a.m. This barking lasted for an hour or so and then abruptly stopped. One day I mentioned this to my friend. He replied very matter-of-factly, "Oh, I know. He's barking at a buck that passes through our yard each morning. He stops barking when the buck lays down out of his sight. He starts to bark again when the buck gets up and crosses the lawn as he leaves in the afternoon." Well, that's all I needed to hear. The next morning, with my friend's permission, I posted 25 yards behind his home. I could see the cars driving along the road in front of his house from my tree stand, which is about 50 to 75 yards from the road. I watched his children get on the school bus and his wife leave for work, while I sat patiently waiting for the buck to show up. Then it happened. His dog began to bark. It was 7:40 a.m., and there, as big as day, the buck casually walked across the yard. When he reached the end of the lawn, he walked off into the woods about 20 yards, paused, circled several times, and bedded down in tall cattails. He was 35 yards from the house, less than 30 yards from my tree stand, and about 50 yards from the dog, and about 75 yards from the main road. As I sat there, I was amazed at how relaxed this big buck was. He paid absolutely no attention to the dog, to the cars on the road, a jogger that went by, or the fact that he was so close to a house. For over an hour he laid motionless in his bed. Finally, trying to get the buck to move, I blew an alarm snort call. I figured it would be a good plan to get the buck to stand up for me to get a cleaner shot at him. It worked. The buck stood up, and as he was looking around to find out what this other deer was so upset about, I drew my bow and sent the arrow toward his mark. By 9:30 that morning, I had a nice 8-point buck that field dressed over 180 pounds and had a gross antler score of 137 and Pope and Young points. Wow. You don't always have to hike in to score on big bucks. There are certain suburban areas across the country, although they're next to heavily populated areas, still offer great hunting opportunities. A classic example of this is the southern area of New York State. While much of the state's deer hunting is in rural areas, a good percentage across the entire state is found right outside urban cities and towns. Westchester is only 10 to 15 minutes from Midtown Manhattan, yet each year bow hunters kill some of the state's largest bucks there. In these suburban areas, deer, especially big bucks, survive alongside of man and attain one of the most important factors to achieve a trophy rack: age. Hidden and left alone during hunting season, they mature into 4.5 to 6.5-year-old trophy-class whitetail bucks by adapting to their habitat. These bucks have learned to be flexible. They hide in areas hunters will not or cannot hunt. Here, these deer secretly go about their business of survival, oblivious to some degree to the houses, strip malls, factories, half-acre swamps, small estates, and many are gentlemen farms, 25 to 50 acres in size, that they call home during hunting season. This isn't the only place you'll find big bucks in strange places. Even in areas where there's a lot of open hunting ground, deer often bed down in spots that are overlooked by most hunters. Big bucks are sensitive to hunting pressure. It doesn't take more than a few encounters with man in October to warn a big buck of what is about to take place: predation. They quickly adapt to avoid it. If necessary, deer will bed down only yards off a major roadway to escape pressure. They have learned by quietly bedding close to the road that most hunters walk right past them and go deeper into the woods. One time I was hunting with my cousin, Leo Soma, at his home in Southampton Bays on Long Island, New York. While driving back home for lunch, we saw a large buck bed down not more than 10 yards off the road on opening day. Unfortunately, he was as safe as a bug in a rug because he was also bedded between two houses that were only yards apart from each other. It is not always necessary to get off the beaten trail to bag big bucks. Learn to accept that sometimes the taking of a large rack buck means sacrificing the romanticism or ambience of a deer hunt. Establish your hunting ethics, your priorities. Is the taking of the quarry uppermost in your mind? Is the taking of larger rack bucks all that important? Or is it acceptable for you to harvest any size buck as long as the aesthetic values of your hunt remain intact? That is, some hunters believe, and rightfully so, that not hearing traffic or seeing houses or coming up on other hunters is as important to the hunt as is the taking of a buck. These hunters, year after year, hike deep into secluded or even remote pockets of woods to hunt deer, unconcerned over the fact that they may indeed be passing up bucks, bedded only yards off the highways, or trails they walked in on. To these hunters, the aesthetic part of their hunt is their priority. I'd have to agree with that. There is something about, being out there in the quiet in a deer blind, where all you hear are the birds and the wind rustling through the leaves of the trees, things of that nature. And sometimes when all you hear is, maybe some twigs breaking, when something's walking in, that is kind of cool. No question about it. If you want to increase your chances of shooting a larger rack buck and be a more consistent hunter, especially in the Northeast, you must be more flexible and innovative than the above-described deer hunter. Accept and learn to hunt very small patches of cover. Apply this tactic even when it has nothing to do with hunting suburban bucks. Even bucks that live in rural areas learn to hide from hunters by using scant areas of cover to conceal themselves during heavy hunting pressure. Many times, rural bucks seek out this type of cover only days into the season. When I'm bow hunting on a friend's farm in New Jersey, I rarely see more than another archer or two, as my friend keeps the place well posted. Throughout the bow season, the bucks show no indication of being affected by hunting pressure. They enter the fields to feed long before dusk. Come firearm season, however, they encounter many more hunters as my friend's entire family gun hunts. By the third day of the season, seeing a deer, never mind a buck, in the fields or woods of the farm is all but over. They've moved off to less pressured areas. Directly across the road, there is a huge swamp that runs to the base of an extremely steep mountain. Both the swamp and the mountain are surrounded by open, overgrown fields dotted with small pockets of cover. While everybody else huffs and puffs their way up the steep ledges of the mountain or slushes through the swamp, I post in semi-open ground and small patches of thickets, cattails, or a quarter to a half-acre woodlots of second growth, only 30 to 50 yards from the road. I have scored consistently on good bucks by using this tactic on this farm. Again, hunting pressured bucks means treating bucks as if they were cottontail rabbits. Expect a buck to be hiding in the slightest bit of cover. Soon you will learn to check out these types of places as regularly as you would as if you were small game hunting. A word of caution here, never check a small patch of cover half-heartedly. I've seen friends check out these areas by kicking logs and shaking brush with their rifles hung over their shoulders or held lazily in their hands. I always feel sorry for them when they're left dumbfounded as a buck breaks from the cover and darts to safety. Always check this type of cover with your gun or bow at the ready, and more important, with your confidence intact. If you expect a buck to be hiding there, he will be. And lastly, even after kicking or walking through a small stand of second growth, don't walk off and continue hunting. Instead, after you've gone through the cover, walk off 10 or so yards to where you have a good vantage point and scan the area for a good 10 to 15 minutes. Big bucks can curl themselves into small packages and have the uncanny ability to let hunters walk by within feet without getting nervous enough to run. They expect the danger to pass. When you stand and wait, however, even the wiliest buck's nerves begin to fray, and he eventually gets nervous enough to jump up and try to escape. Here's a tactic that will put you where the deer are by just paying a little attention to their sign. Find an area where deer bed down between houses, etc., and then locate where they cross the road from the houses. Now, find where they enter the woods to feed on the other side of the road. Once you know exactly where the deer enter on one side of the road and exit on the other side, set up a ground or tree blind within sight of the road. Of course, you gotta check your local hunting laws. So, check out what you can do, can and can't do in that particular county. Even though you won't have the aesthetics of your hunt, you will have action, and more importantly, the element of surprise. Bucks have learned not to expect danger this close to the road. Once inside the woods on the other side of the road, deer stop to regroup and offer hunters good shooting opportunities, often at close-ranged racked bucks. Let the first several deer pass by unmolested. They are usually does and smaller bucks. The lead doe usually runs the group across the road. Then she allows them to regroup and then begins to move them on. Generally only minutes later, the buck crosses the road and enters the woodlot behind the does. Interestingly enough, he often hangs up only 50 or so yards from the road for several minutes. I have observed lots of bucks, especially big boys, kind of mill about for 30 minutes before they decide to move on. Since most of the suburban bucks I've been talking about usually reside on very small patches of private land, it becomes critical for you to obtain permission long before the deer season begins. So start now by introducing yourself to property owners so that you may gain their confidence and trust. Let them know you're a safe and dedicated hunter. Assure them you'll be careful of pets, property, and people. Guarantee them that you will be inconspicuous to the neighbors. Explain that you will treat their land as if it was your own. Promise them you'll not make a pest of yourself and that you will hunt alone. Offer to provide them with a notarized hold harmless release. And if they like game, offer to share your deer meat with them. Only then will you greatly improve your chances of having their property available for you to hunt. Unbelievable hunting opportunities can be realized when you're hunting deer that are extremely predictable. Living between and behind houses in very small patches of cover makes a buck follow very defined routes. They have few other choices. Varying from prescribed trails only brings them closer to encounter with the unknown. Therefore, come heck or high water, backyard bucks do not allow themselves the luxury of roaming their range. They are the vulnerable, predictable trophies of suburbia. Cash in by learning to be flexible enough to hunt these overlooked properties. Hunt big bucks in small places. Well, all right, there you go. You now have permission to not overlook hunting areas that are closer to urban areas. I'm just wondering how many of you guys out there do that, hunt that close to towns and cities and things of that nature. Is your land right in the city limits or anything like that? So we have typically where we hunt, we're quite a bit outside from any towns or cities. So it's not as applicable, kind of to us, but that doesn't mean that there aren't possibly some areas right here in my backyard that I could go hunting. So I need to be probably a little more mindful, have my eyes open a little more, as I'm just going through my daily life here to see, maybe there is a spot that I'd be able to talk to the landowner and go out there and see if I can, do something really close to home. Food for thought, at least, on all that stuff. So I hope that, that was something that maybe got your gears grinding, get your gears moving in your brain to try to find something closer to home. But anyway, I'm going to leave it on that topic for today. I hope everyone out there, hope you, dear listener, are enjoying these episodes. Hopefully you're learning something. Let us know. Please give us some feedback. You can always email us at howdy@feedbandit.com. If you have an idea for a topic you'd want us to cover here, me or Corn Bandit, or both of us together, please let us know that as well. I'd really appreciate it. And then go to feedbandit.com and check out the polos, the camp polos that we have, and the hats that we have over there. It would be amazing if you chose to avail yourself of at least one of those. We'd really appreciate it. Your support would be very appreciated and would really help us out here. Either way, And if you have some friends that also enjoy that Texas first outdoors and hunting and things of that nature, let them know about our humble podcast here. We'd really appreciate it. Could always take a few new listeners, of course. So I really appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to let y'all go, and we will catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, support your local feed store.
Well, I hope the Bandits gave you an interesting episode that either entertained or educated you. Or better yet, both. Hell, I told them this podcasting thing looks harder to do than defeating Santa Ana. So if you would, please help them out by sharing it with all your like-minded friends to help the Bandits get the word out. And don't forget to check us out at feedbandit.com and grab some gear and apparel to support the cause of Texas. Remember, Texas, above all else, preserve the tradition, protect the legacy. Finally, as I said some time ago on the eve of the great battle, and I vigorously repeat here again, be men, be free men, that your children may bless their father's name. Well, fellow bandit, until next time.